The following programme contains scenes that some viewers might find distressing. Previously on Beyond Sports.
I didn't like seeing my little girl get hurt, and it worried me. Her last fight I didn't go and see, and I'm glad I didn't, because I'd have wanted to jump in the ring. A lot of people say, oh my God, how can you watch your daughter in a cage?
It does worry me, head injuries and you know, concussion. I don't want to be punch drunk by the age I'm 30, but I just love this sport so much. It's amazing. I don't want to do anything else.
They call me, Carolina, listen, please must pull out. And we go to Africa. And 1 minute I pack my stuff and we go.
And new EFC Women's Strawweight Champion!
In this episode of Beyond Sports, we meet former Cage Warriors world champion and current UFC fighter Molly McCann.
I'm not going to hold back. I'm going back to the raw, old school Molly who's like, let's fucking go.
We meet kickboxer turned coach Sharon Guillaume.
We did a DMAC course where you actually had to feel getting knocked out to make sure you're doing the technique right. So we'd often punch each other in the face just to get that feeling.
We meet pioneer of women's mixed martial arts, Dr. Rosie the Surgeon Sexton.
No fighter thinks about risks when they're about to step in there, I don't think. I think as soon as you start thinking that way, you can't do it.
And we find out if Megan Morris made her dreams come true in Bahrain.
Not done. Job's not done though, is it?
Questioning a man expect lucky dead days and nights blown away the candlelight. Find the eyes sparky time, holding up a sleazy try. On the brave will steeple heights to all the works of you and I. Compromise for asking why, plunging like Olympic dives, leaving mics pulverized like a fallen chandelier. Tenderize between the ears among the folk that barely clears. Interfere with silver lines, jumping up to catch a link. Exercising demons in this.
My name's Molly McCann, I'm 28, I fight out of Liverpool Next Generation. I got into MMA from a night out. I was literally in a club, got sent home rotten drunk, and when I got in, I put Sky on, and Ronda Rousey was fighting Liz Carmouche for the inaugural bantamweight title. Rotten drunk, I've sent Paul Rimmer an email saying I want to do what that Ronda Rousey does. That was like Sunday morning. Monday I started MMA and I was full-time ever since. That was it. And it was quite funny, 5 years to the day I sent that email, I won a world title. I think from a young age, I'd always seen fighting, always coming from a Scouse family. They tend to be good at a few things, and our boys were always good at fighting in the ring and out of the ring. But I got bullied something rotten when I was younger, and my mum sent me to the gym. I weren't academically great, and all I had was pure passion, I think, and heart, and I wasn't allowed in gyms, and then I didn't stop. I'd turn up every day, and I'd stand outside the gym, and this man called Danny was like, you're not coming in, we don't let girls in the gym. And I was just defiant enough to think, F you, like, I'm not taking no for an answer. I grew up in a very hostile environment, and there was a lot of addiction, violence, abuse, every which way I looked. And it wasn't until I was about 12, 13, that thing kind of like subsided. I just dislike violence, which is mad considering the sport that I'm in, but I look at it as a sport. Like Joe Bloggs, who's had a bevy in the pub, comes out and tries to fight. They could never do what we do because they fight off emotion and it's violence, but ours is like harnessed aggression, and it is so technical. My greatest achievements in MMA will come in at number 3. So the third one is I fought a girl from France, and it was for their Shock-and-Awe title. My dad wasn't very well at the time, and on the morning of the fight we found out he was terminally ill, and I remember taking all of that into the cage, staying composed and coming out and winning the belt, knowing that's probably one of the last times he's ever going to see me fight. And from starting MMA to getting to a professional level and then winning a belt and being able to give it to him, it was just boss, because when he was in hospital, that was a starting point. He would never talk about how ill he was or about my mum. He'd always talk about, oh, look at my daughter, and he just showed them videos. So to be able to bring that for him was amazing.
You can see the deep-rooted boxing background from McCann. Looks to be in trouble. Big right to the head. Knees from McCann. McCann piling it on here. Bacon's turning away and it's over. Molly McCann Pearson pulls it on in the second round. Picks up an absolutely huge TKO stoppage. And you can see the emotion in her eyes. What an incredible moment, Jamie.
Unbelievable.
I'm almost welling up against that.
The second one will probably be winning a world title, headlining the Echo Arena. I think one of the first to do it on Cage Warriors. The amount of tickets that me and Paddy sold was near on the most I think they'd ever sold before. Every single person I've ever known who's helped me on this journey from 6 years of age to now was there and really got to share it with me. And the number one would be signing to the UFC and me debut being in Liverpool. The outcome was the most humbling, horrible experience I've ever faced. I wasn't expecting it at all, to be honest. But when I think back, I'm the first English-born female to fight in the UFC. My first day in the gym to my debut in the UFC within 5 years and like 2 months. Like, it was just, do you know what I mean? It was the maddest, most mental thing. So I just think it wouldn't be a meatball story without the heartbreak and tragedy, because it had gone too well. It took me a long time to watch the fight again, but when I see that walkout, I'm like, oh, get me in there again, I can't wait to go again. I had just gone from being a world champion to like out there eating what I want to, you're a little bit heavy, you've got to go and take this fight because you don't turn the UFC down. I had to cut 14 pounds from the Tuesday to the Saturday morning, and I cut 13 and a half, and the last pound, half a pound just wouldn't come off. You could put it down to the nutritionist, to this, to that, to the other, but ultimately it was me. I've been put in compromising situations on the floor, and I've always managed to absorb strikes and submission attempts, pop back up and punish. This time it weren't my night, like my last fight, do you know what I mean? Because I made one wrong decision and it cost me. I've got someone attacking a choke on my neck, and then I knew it was like, do you tap or do you just go out on your shield? And I just put my hands down and I went, oh, I'm going to sleep. And then I woke up and I didn't know where it was. I thought I was in Barbados. I was like, are we in the Caribbean? And my coach put his hands on my shoulder. He's like, no, no, love. I felt so much shame and embarrassment, and it just took so long to not feel that way. I managed to get to university. I managed to travel the world teaching, which not many people will know that. I've just never broadcasted that thing, but I tell you what, that was the hardest thing for me to do, was become academic. When I was younger, I did really struggle with body image. I've got like a more athletic body than most men. I took a lot of stick for it. It's cool to have thick legs now, and it's all right to have a bit of a bum, and like being muscly is good. Whereas when I was coming up, magazines were really in, and it was all about being stick thin, and Kate Moss was massive when I was a kid, and she was like that. Starting MMA really allowed me to be comfortable in who I am, because the second I'd cross the mat, I'd take my shoes off, I'd start rolling. I was treated as equal. Like, life's not fair and it's not equal, but it's equal rights when you get down there. Like, the lads will hit me as hard as they'd hit each other, and I hit them back just the same. And some people who come and watch it are not always comfortable with that, but I just think, like, I can't have it one way and not the other. I can't moan if someone's going rough on me. I was in a relationship when I started. I sent a text saying, I'm going to start a new career tomorrow, and the text back was like, is it MMA? And I said, yeah. The response back was, it's an embarrassment. your family's ashamed of you and all this kind of carry on. Needless to say, the relationship didn't last much longer than that. Near enough every fighter, their only downfall will be their other half for lads women get in their head. I'm not going to hold back. I'm going back to the raw, old school Molly who's like, let's fucking go. And I'm going to press that person to the fence. And if you're going to try and take me down because I'll submit you from my guard now.
There we go. Now lean back on me. Imagine I'm the sofa. That's it. Put your hands on top of my hands. That's the one. There we go, Nudge. That's it. Take a deep breath in. I'm Rosie Sexton. I'm currently working as an osteopath here in Solihull. I have my own clinic, Alton Osteopathy. When I first got into mixed martial arts, I'd already been involved in traditional martial arts for some time, since being a teenager. I got to a point where I'd been training for quite a while and I knew quite a lot of stuff, but I wasn't confident that I could use it in a real situation. I saw a documentary about mixed martial arts. Immediately I saw that and I thought, I want to give that a go. The plan was I was going to have a couple of fights, prove to myself I could do it, and then go on and get on with the rest of my life. And somewhere along the way, I got hooked on the sport. That sort of spawned a 12-year mixed martial arts career, which took me all over the world. People think of being punched in the face as painful. In reality, it's usually not. It's certainly in the heat of the moment in a fight that you've trained and you're prepared for and you've got all the adrenaline flowing. Usually it's actually surprisingly not painful. If anything, it's a bit disorientating. So when you get hit with a really good shot and you get wobbled and your vision goes a little bit blurry and the reality starts to seem a bit fuzzy around the edges, but it doesn't really hurt. These were all from our holiday. We went to Turkey in the summer, so we got some photos taken while we were over there. I have Steve, my partner, Lewis is my kid, and Alyssa's my stepdaughter. So. I was finishing off my PhD at the time, and so I was still at university, and that's when I started training. On the one hand, it was really exciting, and the whole journey was. It was a great experience to have. There were moments where I sort of look back and I go, I'm not sure I signed up for this.
Gina's got that choke in deep.
She's got the choke.
And she's got incredible leverage. She's much taller than Rosie, but Rosie's coming out of it. I think she isn't. She's out of it.
She's out. Look at that. Rosie's a fighter. She is a fighter.
No fighter thinks about risks when they're about to step in there, I don't think. I think as soon as you start thinking that way, you can't do it. Anything in life is a risk. Getting out of bed is a risk. Getting in the car and driving to training is a risk. Not going to training is also a risk. So for what I got out of it, I think that was a worthwhile trade-off. There's always concerns about injuries of lots of different kinds when you're doing mixed martial arts. The injury rate is not that high. How's that? All right there?
Yeah, that was fine, yeah.
You can do a similar thing going the other way. You quite like that one, didn't you?
Yeah.
People will remember every fight you had and they'll treat it like it was yesterday. I still get messages about fights I had in 2005. Everything's out there and it's there forever. That's something that does play on people's minds. When I see people talking about fighting and going, oh, it's something I'm doing, for my family and because I want to give my kids a better life, I do sometimes look at them and go, you haven't done the sums here, because for most fighters, they would be earning more money working minimum wage in Tesco's. As a method of personal growth, mixed martial arts is great. As a career, as a way of making money, it's not so great, but it's like buying the worst lottery ticket in the world. In terms of fighting, I think as evolved primates, we've all evolved to fight. We've all got that thing in us that allows us to deal with those situations. And again, it's something that we might not be aware of unless we go out of our way and put ourselves in those situations. A lot of people never really encounter that violence, and I think sometimes that almost the fear of the unknown is worse than what it's like when you do encounter it. I think this was maybe one of the things that I got out of being involved in the sport is when you actually encounter that face to face, that you realise I can deal with this. And yeah, you know, being punched might not be a whole barrel of laughs. And getting beaten up is no fun, but I can deal with it. It's not that bad, and I think that's something that. That's a useful lesson to learn, and that's something that's in all of us. You know, I don't think whether you're male, female. I mean, some people are more naturally inclined towards wanting to fight than others, and on average, more men than women might want to do the sport. That's entirely possible, but I don't think there's a hard dividing line between the two. I think, you know, I've seen very aggressive women and not particularly aggressive men. So I think everyone's an individual, and I prefer to treat people as I find them rather than thinking of them as a stereotype.
I don't think it's so much a technical difference as it is just a raw size difference that is really not working to her advantage.
Yeah, you're right. It's just Carano's so much stronger. But Sexton doing a great job here. She's raining down some punches. This looks good for the judges.
Amazing. 2 women.
Do I enjoy violence? Now there's a question. I mean, the answer I've always given is it's more about the personal challenge. It's not about beating somebody else up, it's about testing myself. Having said which, when things are going well in a fight and you make something work, you get a buzz from it. And there is maybe also a bit of an enjoyment of the process of doing that. And again, I think that's something that, in the right context, in moderation, isn't an unhealthy thing. You know, I think, like I say, I've respected every opponent that I've fought, and you go in there with an understanding that, yeah, we're going to try and put the other person unconscious. You know, that's the nature of the sport. That's what you sign up for. I think there's also a sense of being able to do something or being allowed to do something that normally is forbidden. You know, in terms of everyday life, you know, especially as a woman, you grow up. Not only is violence wrong, but it's also unladylike. You know, it's not something that you should be. I mean, boys will be boys, but girls must never get involved in things like that. Those are the messages that you pick up from society. Then being in a situation where it's not only explicitly okay to do that, but encouraged, I think there's something liberating about that. I remember my first fight, we weren't even particularly close in weight. I think it was just, there's another woman who wants to fight, let's do it. Since women have been competing in the UFC, for example, we've seen high-profile female fights. That's encouraged a whole other generation of women to start training. And I think when you think that's only going back to 2013, so we're still seeing that generation of women who are inspired by, you know, the early Ronda Rousey, for example. I think we're still seeing them coming through. People can follow their own passion without being constrained by gender stereotypes.
On the 10th of November, I'm going to be flying out to Bahrain to compete in the IMMAF Junior World Championships. The idea of that is to fight multiple opponents from all over the world in a week, and then the winner comes out on top at the end.
We're here! Look how sick that is! I'm fighting tomorrow, really friggin' excited. So if we win tomorrow, rest Friday, fight on Saturday.
On last week's episode of Beyond Sports, we caught up with Megan Morris ahead of her trip to Bahrain to compete on the IMMAF Junior World Championships. Megan made it through to the first stage finals and won. And then the grand finals.
We go to the judges' scorecards, and your junior female flyweight unified champion of the world is red corner.
And was crowned unified junior amateur world champion.
My name's Sharon Guillaume. I'm one of the co-owners of TMAS, the martial arts studio. I myself have been training since the age of 5. My dad was in the army in Singapore and he boxed for the army. And then when he moved over to the UK, I have 2 older brothers. So I think it was in order first to defend myself against them, took me down to a local taekwondo studio. And it was more, I think, his interest in martial arts that rubbed off on myself and my brothers as well. I had 2 older brothers and they did often set me up for little fights when I was 3 years old. So I did start off very, very young, but I think with doing martial arts, it stood me in good stead just to be confident in myself, to carry myself well and not be afraid of anything really. When I was growing up, I did martial arts 3-4 times a week. So at the age of 15, 16, I'd done my black sash in Kung Fu and I'd also qualified to be a piano instructor. And I went to university thereafter to do business, but when I graduated, my mum always said, why did you become a martial artist? Why couldn't you become a piano teacher instead? A lot more calmer, no injuries on your joints or anything, but I think my passion was martial arts and fitness. Every Sunday, my dad would hire a van and then a big crowd of us would all go down to different situations, whether it was Birmingham, Stoke, Manchester. Every weekend we'd go and fight. But back in my day, I used to fight against the guys and I used to always win and the guys didn't really like that. After when I came back from university, I did 1 or 2 fights, and then I carried on more with the teaching side rather than the fighting side. But I was North West champion for 3 years running, and that was against the lads as well. Growing up with 2 older brothers and with doing Kung Fu as well, I tended to be the ragdoll, the dummy. I was getting thrown everywhere, demonstrated on, so I can take a good punch to the face. Yeah, it doesn't faze me at all. You get used to it. We did one a DMAC course where you actually had to feel getting knocked out to appreciate the technique, to make sure you're doing the technique right. So we'd often punch each other in the face just to get that feeling. So definitely say there is something addictive about training in itself. I feel 100 times better. I get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, I go training 6:30 before my working day, just so that I can get my training in. Otherwise, my training will suffer if I haven't done my training, and then I do the best for my clients and my students then. The ladies tend to have a lot more, the fights are a lot cleaner, the techniques are a lot cleaner, and they're really, really good to watch. And I think definitely for the future, it's great entertainment, but they bring an awful lot to the industry. When I was training when I was a lot younger, I was the minority, but as the years have gone by, there's a lot more women now that are training, and I think it's a lot more widely accepted.